This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Thursday, December 12th, 2019. And my guest is no other than Jaime Rivera of Pocketnow. Hi, Jaime. How are you?
It's doing great. So good to be invited one more time. Thank you.
Oh yeah, thanks for being on. It's been such a little while that I've been trying to get you, and
I know.
it's
I'm
just
sorry.
Don't worry about it. It's just that you have such a knack for the news, and we have a bunch of interesting news this week. Some iPhone and Galaxy rumors that you've covered extensively on the daily on Pocketnow, and I love Chinese phones, and there's a whole bunch of Chinese phone news going on right now. So that's going to be the show. I don't know how you feel about Chinese phones.
I love them.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I think for me, Chinese phones are kind of like, the forbidden fruits, right? The phones we can't really easily get, or you have to import or gray mark, or they're really weird, or they'll never come out with Google mobile services, etc., right? So that's kind of what I categorize in quotes, Chinese phones.
Well, I am actually about to get the top forbidden fruit very soon.
Oh, I know that one. I'm also about to get that top forbidden fruit. I've been working really hard with the right people in the right places to get that top forbidden fruit.
Good. I can't wait to try out that camera.
Yeah, me too. I have a way to install GMS on it too, so I think it's gonna be good.
Oh, you and I need to talk then.
We will talk. So, let's talk iPhone. You're using iPhone 11. I think every creator right now is using an iPhone 11 because it kicks so much ass.
For the right reasons, finally.
Right?
For the right reasons. Yeah.
I have a 10 that I'm about to trade in for an 11
Oh yeah,
Pro.
trade that in. That was like the worst one.
Yeah, I'm looking at trading mine in for just the small 11 Pro, probably an Emerald.
Oh, I would not get the 11 Pro. I would get the 11, the basic
one. I
one.
want the 3 cameras. If I'm gonna go all out, I don't know. You think I should not bother?
Yeah, well, in my case, I was like, my God, I literally paid $1,500 for mine. Because if you do the math, it's you can't survive on 64 gigs. You need 256.
Right.
And so, which is the only tier that's available. So it's $150 over the premium of $999. Plus the fact that you obviously need Apple Care because, if you're going to use it for the long run, it's just the best thing to do. And so do the math. It's $1,500 once you add taxes. It's crazy.
See, I was going to be holding back by not buying the Max, right? And honestly, I don't think I need more than 64 because for me, I basically offload my videos as I go. It's really rare that I fill up the phone.
Oh, okay.
And I don't do 4K. Remember, I record 1080p. So the storage is not going to be an issue. Apple Care, we'll see. Sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. And then
I think that this is the phone that's going to make you jump to 4K because, God, it's so good.
Oh, maybe I will. Maybe
it's one of those
right.
things where it's like, Miriam, I use it's more like $5,000 worth of camera kit between just my GH5 and the lens that I'm using with it. And my beat camera is an iPhone 11 Pro. It's that good.
Oh, I know. But see, the problem is my workflow is all optimized, at least when I'm on the go, around 1080p because I have a MacBook 12-inch, remember, for editing? Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
I wanted to bother you about that MacBook in Maui.
I'm waiting for the ARM. I'm waiting for an ARM replacement. Honestly, that's it at this point. I'd be ready to buy a 16-inch MacBook Pro in a heartbeat because that's what I would need right now to do proper work. But also I need my escape key. I've been waiting for an escape key to come back, so I'm all set for that. It's either a MacBook Air at this point, like the new one, or a 16-inch MacBook Pro. And I'm not sure. Should I do 4K editing on the Air? Does that work? Have you tried it?
It would. No, don't.
So,
if you're doing 1080p,
so we're looking at a lot of money all
fine.
of a sudden right now. So I'm thinking, okay, my quality right now is not really the resolution issue. It's more like I'm not happy with things like color balance, contrast, all these issues I have with my Pixel 4 recording video, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like,
they're trash.
Right. So I'm thinking if I can just up my game by staying to 1080 until and have a device that I can transition to 4K with maybe 6 months from now when I update my Mac, right? I'm hoping that at some point a MacBook comes along that's ARM-based that can do 4K video editing, like the iPad does, iPad Pro is ARM-based and does 4K video editing perfectly fine. So we'll see. I don't know. Maybe I should get an 11. Maybe I don't need the telephoto.
I love the 11. If you do the math, here's the thing. Telephoto is good to have if you like street photography. But then, it's going to most of the time it'll just switch off.
This is just for video recording. I'm not going to use this phone for anything else. It's going to be my video camera, right? That's all.
I never use that telephoto like at all. Like I don't care. Like for me, I would rather have a wider crop, record in 4K, and then be able to export at 1080p in your case. I would rather have more storage because that's one of the things. Like it really hogs on storage.
So I think this conversation is really helpful because I think I'm gonna buy an 11 non-Pro because it's going to be a cheaper upgrade anyway. And
then go for the 128
and go
variant,
get more
which
storage.
is just $50 more.
Yeah. And then get myself a better video device. Wow, very helpful, Jaime.
I'm telling you, it's that good.
So let's back up a bit because we've kind of derailed the whole podcast with this. It's fine though because it's really helpful. No. We're going to talk about iPhone rumors, and this is a good preamble to the next conversation, which I think is really interesting. I mean, there's so many rumors. Maybe you can summarize it in a nutshell for us because you've been covering this almost daily in the daily.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's funny how people are like, my God, there's so much iPhone news, and it's just funny, but it's like our audience is so anti-iPhone, and yet they click more whenever it's an iPhone video. It's just hilarious. Like if I post a video that talks about Oppo, for example, which today's video is going to be about that, and I'll explain to you why. Because I notice it's not in the rundown.
Yeah, we'll add it because stuff has been added since yesterday anyway. You know how.
Oh yeah. But think about it as here. We've got two separate predictions. One coming from Ming-Chi Kuo, which I trust more, and then we've got other analysts that are predicting separately. So Ming-Chi Kuo says we're getting 5 iPhones, 5 different models
for 2020, right?
For 2020. Apparently, rumors have it that at least 4 of these units are going to have 5G, and then one of them might not, which is the possible successor to the SE2. To the SE, which would be the SE2. It'll bring the design of the iPhone 8, but with the internals of the iPhone 11. Well,
that one was a given. We knew an SE2 was coming, and that's what Theo's going to get, my spouse, because they're on an SE original, and they're hurting real bad right now.
And so that's one of them, and that's rumored to happen in March. But so here's the thing. The rumors are that there will be another 4 models. Apparently that there will be 212 models. Like if you go for the iPhone 11
Pros, right?
Exactly. And so apparently there's going to be a 12 and a 12 Max, and then a 12 Pro and a 12 Pro Max.
Huh. Honestly, I don't see that being surprising because if you think about it, it's in Apple's best interest to diversify. The 11, if I had, and since I'm about to buy one, thanks to you, Jaime, it is a bigger phone than I'd like, to be honest, right?
Yeah, but apparently that's not going to change.
So it's going up in size, not down in size.
So apparently the 12 and the 12 Pro, it'll be 6.1 inches, and then there's still no word on the size of the larger one. Now, the interesting part is that apparently the 12 Pro is going to reduce in size. It's going to get even smaller. So it's either that they're going to bring in, I don't know what they're going to do there. That's interesting that it's going to be, instead of 5.8 inches, apparently it's going to go down to 5.7 or 5.6. And then the Pro Max will remain at 6.5. That's going to be interesting.
And also, there's rumors that they're all going OLED, right?
There's rumors that they're all going OLED.
Not the 9 or whatever SE2 thing, but the other ones, right?
But apparently these are not going to be the same OLEDs. Like that OnePlus and other companies that are using OLEDs, it's not the same OLED. So apparently the Samsung panels are going to be used for the Pros, and then apparently we're going to get LG OLEDs for the less expensive ones. Which I don't know if I want, because I'm
the fans are going to have a field day on this one.
But here's the thing, Miriam. I mean, you like your MacBook? If you went right now and you bought a 13-inch MacBook Pro with that P3 color gamut and everything, that's literally almost the same panel that you're getting on the 11-inch iPad Pro and 12.9, and it's the same panel that you get on the iPhone 11. Same panel. So it's not a bad display. I love the display of my Mac to death. So it's not OLED, but it's not a bad screen.
No, I'm sitting at a 27-inch iMac that's 2 years old. I got the 5K display. It's gorgeous, right? And so even my MacBook 12-inch, which is 5 years old, has one of the better Retina displays on it of the time, and it still today looks absolutely gorgeous. So I agree with you. I'm not going to worry about it being LG. I'm just saying the fans like, oh my God, it's an LG panel. I can't believe they did that. And I'm like, LG makes great panels. I don't know what you're talking about.
LG makes the best panels right now, and if you want to buy, the irony is, if you want to buy an OLED TV right now, LG is the company that's selling them.
Exactly. Nobody else can touch LG for OLED.
They're kind of killing it, yeah.
Yeah, Quantum Dot is okay, but I'm going to go OLED all the way if I were to buy a TV right now. That's for sure.
People have forgotten that Quantum Dot is also an LG innovation that other companies have made more benefit out of.
I know, it's so funny. So what are the other rumors around these iPhones? I mean, this is a big package of rumors that I kind of think is true. There's rumors of them dropping Lightning for no port in 2021 with the 13 iPhones, right?
Yeah. Yes, but no. Apparently, just like we got the 10, where it was like a different iPhone, and then they also launched the Legacy 8 and 8 Plus. Apparently, we're going to continue with the legacy models, and there will be a special model, like the One More Thing unit. And that One More Thing unit is not going to bring any ports, apparently. But I think that Apple is just waiting until 2021. Well, but the thing about it is, you have to remember, like, two things have to happen. One is battery life has to become amazing. And right now there's only one iPhone, well, two iPhones that provide amazing battery life, and it's the 10 and it's the 11 Pro Max or the 11. The 11 Pro doesn't really have great battery life.
See, there's another reason I should buy an 11, right, Jaime?
Oh yeah, no, are you kidding me?
You got me going.
That's one of the major. So a couple of things have to happen. The first thing is obviously battery optimizations, but those battery optimizations have to come in at the hand of the display. OLEDs are not necessarily as power efficient as they should be, and it's amazing how LCDs, which were not the most power efficient 5 years ago, are now the most power efficient. And so that has to happen, and then also wireless charging has to get faster. Right now, I think that the fastest wireless charging is a proprietary technology from Xiaomi, which I believe is at 20.
Somebody's got 30. I can guarantee you. I think it's Huawei. Let's Google it.
I know that Xiaomi launched it with the Mi 9.
So Mi 9 has 30 watt. It's Xiaomi. Who knew?
Interesting.
So I think it's coming out. I think we're going to see 40 watt very soon. I think it's just a matter of time at this point, you know?
But is the Xiaomi technology still proprietary? Because I actually have that wireless charging pad. They gave it to us with the Mi 9.
I know. I have one as well.
But it provides 15 watts to everything else.
Of course, and nobody standardized anything. But look, the reality is this. I hate to say this, but even if Apple makes their own proprietary charger and can deliver, say, 40 watt, honestly, even 40 watt is insane. Do they deliver even 30 watt on their wired right now on Apple? I don't think so. The highest the iPhone goes was 25, yeah? 20?
Yeah, 25 if you use the adapter, yeah.
So let's say they're working with Qi or whatever wireless, whoever that organization is, to bump a standard up so that everyone can benefit, which they could do. Or they could come up with their own thing and say, you know, like they did with Lightning, here's an entire ecosystem of wireless devices from Belkin and whatever that we approved that use our new standard, and it's backwards compatible with Qi for the old iPhones, and it charges only this new iPhone 13 Mega Pro 9000, you know, whatever it's going to be called.
That sounds like a OnePlus name.
Yeah, right? Oh my God. Yeah. That new 5G T-Mobile phone that I have in my pocket, yeah, it's pretty freaking ridiculous. But anyway, so that's kind of what I think is going to happen. I think that it's very likely we're going to see something in the 20 to 30 watt that'll let you do pretty quick wireless charging, and then it'll be okay, you know?
We'll see. I mean, the more they reduce the need of consumers, I mean, when was the last time we had true innovation in battery technology? Was it like 10 years ago?
Yeah, about that. So
come on, like it's about time that we do the graphene batteries and not have to worry about charging our products.
So it's interesting because Huawei is already using graphene in their cells. They started that with the Mate 20 last year, Mate 20 Pro, actually, to be specific. They're using graphene to make thinner, lighter, a higher capacity, like more charging cycles, batteries for their Mate 20. Yeah, I wrote a story about that. You know, I sometimes do some ghostwriting for like sponsored content. And Huawei had me write this stuff about their battery tech for, I don't know, I think it ended up on Mashable or something. Yeah, sometimes you're reading me and you don't even know it, listeners. The magic of sponsored content. But yeah, so what is your general take? I mean, before we move on to Samsung, like what like, are you excited about this? I'm kind of excited about the iPhone 9 or SE2 because I said Theo is going to benefit. And there's a lot of people out there who don't want Face ID still, for whatever reason. I
can't believe the statement that I'm about to make.
Controversial.
I think my favorite phone for 2019 is the iPhone 11 Pro. And I can't believe it. Like,
wait,
if you
Pro,
watch my
11.
review,
you just sold me on the 11, Jaime. I'm getting mixed messages.
Well, because you don't need, trust me, you don't need everything else. But if you want to, like, if you want to splurge, go for it. Yeah. But the 11 is good enough. When I did my review of the 11 Pro, what I said was, this is the hardest selling iPhone because there's really no point other than if you want the smaller size. The 11 has a purpose. The 11 Pro Max has a purpose, but then I'm like, the one in the middle is the hardest sell. And yet this is the phone that I'm like, the first time that I loved an iPhone was the iPhone 4. Like, that iPhone was the one that sold me in the iPhone concept because the videos that I have in 720p from that phone from my kids are still, I could compare those videos to any camera today and it'll give them a run for its money in a video quality perspective.
Yeah, I remember recording with the iPhone 4 when I first got it and getting completely blown away by the quality.
It's
not just
shocking.
the resolution, it's just amazing. Yeah.
The color reproduction was so good. And so that's the thing. I'm like, the last time, Apple was the first company to take video seriously because I'm a creator. For me, video is everything. And so the 11 Pro is like my B camera or the 11. I have both, so I can pick whichever.
I mean, that's why I'm thinking of trading in my 10 because it's almost in mint. Like, I've barely used it, and I bought it because I wanted to experience Face ID and the new interface, and I need a phone to do video. I need to up my video game, and right now I think what's holding me back is not, my editing could be better and stuff, and that can always be improved, but it's mostly like my capture is not that great because I'm using Android phones, and it's just, unless I use maybe a Galaxy, which is half decent. But like the iPhone, I see what you guys are shooting with the iPhone. It's just so solid, like all around.
It's so solid. The dynamic range is crazy. Like, listen, I've had cases where I'm like, whenever I'm like in like really, dark and like whenever I need dynamic range, I will never use my camera. It takes too long for you to have to.
So do you record with the built-in app, and does it handle white balance? My biggest problem with recording, especially unboxing videos, is that if I have a white phone or a phone with a white display, immediately my white balance changes, my hands turn yellow or red or whatever, and I want to peg the white balance when I start recording.
Yeah, that's the only challenge. Like, I would recommend iPhones.
Filmic, right?
Yeah. I haven't really tried it. Like, I only use the standard camera because I usually, whenever you use third-party applications, something is missing.
Yeah.
All right. I'm about to shoot myself right now.
With what?
Okay, so I just discovered that I had not noticed that Apple actually fixed the resolution and bitrate settings. So in the past, you would have to go into the camera settings. You would literally have to go into settings and then look for camera and then fix the 4K at 30, 4K at 60. And now the toggle is literally the indicator. So the indicator that's telling you that you're recording at 4K at 30, you just touch the 4K and it changes to HD. Touch the 30 and it changes to 60 or 24. Oh my God.
So, but you by default you can't peg the white balance. You basically have to use Filmic or something, right?
You can't, and sadly, that's one of the things where the moment, and this is one of my criticisms with how pro this thing is. You need pro controls, and I think that Apple really needs to do that. You need pro controls, or at least you need to be able to shoot in log. If Apple would come up with some setting for log, and then I could just use a LUT, then I wouldn't have to worry about white balance or anything because you could just do it in post. Yeah,
I know. I mean, I want something relatively simple for my workflow too. I don't want it to add more work to post. So that's kind of what I like. In the early days, so here's the funny thing. When they switched to the Pixel 4 camera across all the pixels, they removed the white balance setting. There was a white balance setting that you could manually change in video recording. And I used to use it all the time. I would set my white balance and I would be like, okay, now, it's going to look right during the whole video. And actually, ideally, I would love to set my EV as well, my exposure. Yeah. Because when I do unboxing videos, the light is very controlled.
But yeah, that's one of the main reasons why, even if you had white balance controls or EV controls, what you really need is a control for ISO. Because if you just set your ISO to a specific number, the camera will automatically control exposure and everything as you move the black box around.
True that.
And so that's the reason why, I don't agree that this phone is a pro. I wouldn't call it a pro just because it has an extra camera. It's not there. Like when I did the comparison against the Note 10, I was like, all right, listen, this is a phone more for professionals that are, if you're a video creator like me, like, I don't know if you've seen this video from John Morrison. He just posted no, but did you see his Mac Pro video?
Oh, not yet. I thought you were talking about the one we shot everything in 4K with a front camera, which is really incredible.
No, that was great. But watch his video where he goes into a studio with famous music producers. And it's hilarious when you see one of the most popular producers using his iPhone to do certain voice recordings, like beatboxing with the iPhone, then airdropping it to the Mac Pro, and then editing all that and turning that into part of the beat of a song that he actually published. I was like, WTF, man? What the?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, look, it's exciting. I, as a creator myself, slightly lesser than you because my podcast is obviously the main thing, I am looking forward to upgrading my video game a little bit. So I'm going to be switching to the iPhone. But I also do feel like, this news about all these new phones coming up is pretty interesting. It's a big deal. So I'm kind of glad. Like, I feel like Apple really has nailed it this year, and I hope they continue doing that. I mean, obviously, the camera systems, I don't know how much they can improve. They're so good right now. They're going to sit on that for a year or two. But this year was a big change for them, right? They really needed to up their game, and they certainly delivered. So,
if Apple sits on its laurels one more year, you're going to have Google or Samsung killing them again.
I don't think it's going to be Google. Google just is lost. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, I love my Pixel 4, but it is so disappointing. Like, the fact that I still cannot.
I don't love my Pixel 4.
I cannot use my banking apps, Jaime. That's why so I've switched to the OnePlus 7T Pro 5G on T-Mobile because I'm a T-Mobile customer and I have a review unit. I've switched to that as my main phone because I need a fingerprint reader. I want to enjoy 5G. And by the way, 5G here in the Bay Area is not in SF, but I was in Oakland last night, in Alameda specifically, and the 5G was glorious. Yeah. And so I just want to say that, yes, we're obviously not seeing millimeter wave kind of speeds on sub-6 low band at 600 megahertz, but man, we're seeing such an improvement in coverage instantly on T-Mobile. It's really quite a life changer for a lot of people. It's gonna matter. I don't want to recommend this phone right now for T-Mobile customers because there's more coming. We know this from Snapdragon Summit, right? Yeah. But as soon as they come up with a newer version, maybe the OnePlus 8 or the Galaxy S11, that's a perfect segue for the next thing. I think people on T-Mobile right now, you should be very excited what's happening with 5G, and you should consider buying a new phone in 2020, mid-year or so. That's going to be 5G. And here's the other thing I want to talk before we leave Apple real quick and we segue into Samsung. I have this hunch after our Snapdragon Summit experience that Apple's going to have 5G phones this year.
Oh, so apparently that's the reason why it could be. So the other set of rumors are that we're going to have SKUs that are going to support LTE, SKUs that are going to do 5G. So apparently you won't have a choice with the case of the Pros. The Pros will be 5G, 100%.
And you know what? That makes perfect sense because first of all, now we know that Apple and Qualcomm are working together, number one. Yeah. And after seeing I still think 5G is not quite ready yet in December 2019, but I think once MWC is over and we've had a few new phone releases that are at affordable price points and even flagships with all three bands of 5G, millimeter wave, mid-band, and low band, and we have choices, I think it's going to be probably viable on some networks, potentially, especially if the Sprint merger goes through. On T-Mobile, definitely it's going to be worth it because right now, low band alone solves a huge coverage issue that T-Mobile had.
Yeah.
That's the reality. And then I don't know about AT&T and Verizon because they're really focused on millimeter, and I don't think millimeter is just a drop in the bucket. It's going to be the best case scenario when you're in an airport or a stadium or like downtown New York City or something, you know?
I think millimeter wave is going to be, because of the line of sight necessity, it's going to be a home thing where you're going to have something that's going to, like Fios, you know, where it directs to your home. But I don't think that phones are going to be able to take full advantage of millimeter wave. Just from a physics perspective, the amount of antennas that you need, and just you're moving around, you can cover millimeter wave with your hand. I don't think it was really designed for that, or at least not in phase one. And so here's the thing: like, I like the fact that T-Mobile is doing this right now. They fixed their low band issues. They bring low band with the 600 megahertz. The moment they integrate Sprint, they get the mid band, and so we're like, that's it. Like, literally, T-Mobile's merger actually makes a lot of common sense.
Yeah, I mean, I was in a Thai restaurant last night in Alameda. I had 5G on the OnePlus, and it was 2 bars, like almost the lowest bar was a 5G. And next to it, my Pixel had no bars, no service. And I did a speed test, and I was still getting 3 up and 10 down, and with 1 bar. And that solved my problem right there. That's the problem that T-Mobile has everywhere, that you drop 4G sometimes, and this will solve this problem. And I think for that alone, kudos to them for being really the first to give us a taste of what 5G is, but not, I love that they're not going for a speed, that you're just going for coverage, especially because their network needs it,
Yeah, they just need to work on, like right now, consumers, I think that consumers are most skeptic about 5G because we're telling them, yeah, you're going to be able to download a full Netflix movie in minutes, and then people are like, yeah, how much am I going to pay for that? Because carriers with their current data system, I think that carriers are the ones that are scaring people away from adopting 5G because like consumers don't know how the pricing is going to be.
Well, it's the same price on T-Mobile right now, so...
Yeah, but the problem is, are you going to get throttled is the question? Is that going to happen?
Well, I think the network's designed for that not to happen. That's the whole point, Jaime, right? That's the whole point of 5G, right?
No, but that's the problem. The problem is that, here's the thing, that's what we think. T-Mobile has not been specific. No carrier has been specific as to how 5G is going to be priced. And
but
therefore,
theoretically, we should get, at least, on T-Mobile, I'm pretty sure they're not going to raise the price. But I wouldn't be surprised if they surprise us and let us actually download a lot more data just because the network lets you do it and because they're trying to disrupt the market, at least initially.
They need to be clear about it. They just need to say, hey, listen, this is going to be like broadband where we're going to cap you depending on tiers of speed, depending on how much you pay. And that way you don't have to worry about your data cap and it's going to be unlimited. If they don't do that, people are not going to care.
Although, to be honest with you, Jaime, this matters more for the higher speeds because if you're on 600 megahertz, you're only getting 20% more speed than LTE anyway. Right?
Yeah, but the problem is...
So now if you get better coverage, that's all you really want and need, right?
Yes, but again, are you going to be a data consumer? Like, would you care about that extra speed if you don't know how much you're going to pay for it? That's the challenge.
We need some clear numbers and prices and rules. I agree with you.
Because every time that I land here in Honduras and I know that I'm like data, it's hilarious. Data in Honduras is insanely fast. It is really, really fast, but it's very expensive. Yeah. And so like even if I today I did one of my Peloton classes from the gym remotely, and I literally ate up 1.8 gigs in my 45-minute class. And that was the amount of gigs that I had for the week. Wow. And so I was like, crap. And so now
your Peloton is in Honduras? I thought that was in
No. So I have it in the New York apartment, but you can stream the classes.
Oh, you can borrow another bike, right?
Okay, you could stream the classes and use another bike. And so, but here's the thing: I ate up 1.8 gigs, and so guess what's in my mindset now? My mindset is like crap because I had pre-downloaded the class, and then something went wrong, and I don't know what else, and out of the blue, boom, it just ate my data, and so. If consumers are going to approach 5G with that mentality, they just won't care.
Right. All I'm saying, though, is that I'm very impressed with what T-Mobile is bringing to the table right now.
Yeah.
I'm super stoked. I went into, Snapdragon Summit very jaded about 5G like we all are. And then I tried it out and I was still a little jaded because it's Maui. I figured it's a pretty controlled environment. But then I landed in Portland and it worked in places it didn't work with LTE for me. It wasn't super fast, but it was working. And then here in the Bay Area, I'm discovering there's pockets of 5G, and I'm like, holy crap, they actually really did roll out 5G in the entire freaking country. Those bastards. Like, it's real. And yes, this phone is not the one to get right now because better phones will be out in 6 months, 3 months, whatever. But this is a big deal for T-Mobile customers. Once we understand the terms a little better, I think it's going to be worth it for a lot of people.
I hope so, because in the end, right now, you have products like Stadia. You have products like Fortnite. Right now, Fortnite is a success. Stadia is a complete dumpster fire. Right. And yet, one of the biggest challenges is how can you make all these products mobile and take advantage of that $7 billion industry if consumers are worried about their data plan because of how much there's consumption in data over a game, for example. No, not let's not even mention like movies or stuff like that. People just won't care. It's hilarious how many people, one of the things that I've learned so much with participating with Qualcomm that I like a lot of consumers don't know. It's funny how people hold on to their phones for 4 years, 3 years, and they have no clue how much LTE categories have changed in 4 years. They have no idea how much faster the newer phones are, even if they don't have 5G. So imagine that level of misinformation that currently exists in LTE. People that are still holding on to an iPhone SE or to an iPhone, like I saw somebody with an iPhone 5S yesterday.
Ouch.
Because they don't know. For them, it's either if the operating system is fast or not, or if the battery lasts or not. But they don't know that their phone is not capable of taking advantage of the new LTE Cat 20 or whatever that's been out for a year or 2 years, and their phones are stuck in LTE Cat 5.
Cat 0.
Pretty much. I don't think it was categorized back then.
I don't think it was categorized back then. Anyway, look, I think it's going to be interesting. We should move on to Samsung because we got still a bunch of stuff to talk about. But I agree with you. I think I'm stoked. I think, honestly, look, between MediaTek's announcement of the Dimensity 1000 chip and Qualcomm's announcement of the 765 75G, particularly the 865 is flagship. I don't care too much. I mean, I think it's great, but I don't think that's going to be the bread and butter.
It's not going to be the disruptor.
And I think adding to that the Apple Qualcomm agreement, I think we're going to see some serious, like I think if people think 5G is not coming next year, they are sadly mistaken. It is real. It is happening hard effing core next year. I'm calling it now. We're going to see it everywhere, and it's not going to be in the US just, it's going to be everywhere. We're going to see it because in China, because in Europe, like these chipsets are going to facilitate networks to go into 5G, and it might not necessarily be the fastest 5G, but it's going to give us more capacity, more coverage, and potentially more bills. So, as Jaime said, but the reality is, are you willing to pay for that? I think some people are, and I mean, I'm happy that T-Mobile doesn't charge me more right now, but they have a very interesting pricing structure they've always had. I've had unlimited data with them that it really isn't. I mean, I've never felt the throttling because I've never gone that high up, but it's very, very reasonable. Like, it's very livable is what I'm saying, So hopefully they're going to continue doing something like that. So Galaxies, what are you, like, there's all these rumors, S11 rumors, like it's been a series of them for a week now. And then of course the Fold 2 rumors, which basically looks like a Razer phone. What's your take on all that madness?
Well, Fold 2 is it's funny.
Inevitable?
Well, it's not just that it's inevitable. I think that Samsung just realized that the Razer stole their thunder. The Razer has gotten significantly more positive publicity than the Fold. And that's just the way it is. The Fold, in my review of the Fold, I was like, listen, this is a great tablet, but it's not a great phone. And in the end, how many consumers do you know are, like, if anything, if the tablet market were so successful right now, so crazy in sales, then you'd assume that people want a tablet in their pockets. But the fact of the matter is people really like their phones. And if you can make them like them even more and turn it, like, I think that this is like what the Virtue phone should have always been, or all these, like, fancy phones out there.
Bling phones? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the Razer is going to be it.
And Samsung nailed it because they had something like that before the Razr. Not a folding display, but remember the W series phones in China,
and
right?
in Japan, and they sell them
super
crazy
bling,
expensive,
like gold, like $2,000 phones. Exactly. Yeah. They know.
And people buy them, and so the rumors are that there's going to be a Fold 2. It's not going, but the thing about it is they're polarizing rumors. Some people claim that it's not going to be very powerful. Others are, and I trust the sources that claim that it's going to be like a powerhouse, that we're actually going to get a lot of power on this thing, that it might even also bring 5G.
It's inevitable to bring 5G after our conversation.
It's inevitable, and here's the thing. A lot of people, so Moto is experimenting with the Razr, and I think that they're experimenting and they're erring in the side of caution, and all the mistakes that they've made with that design, Miriam, I would be willing to pay $1,500 for that phone.
Me too. That phone is insane. Like,
I would.
It is so good. Like, I went to the LA event, the actual pre-brief, and I was blown away. I was blown away. Like this, Hayato and I did an episode 2-3 episodes ago about it, and it's really impressive technically. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Technically, it is so well done, and therefore, like, I don't need a foldable, but I really want one. Like that one, I really want that phone because it's just beautiful. It's nano coated. I don't have to worry. And these are the challenges that Samsung has with the Fold 2. The fact that they have no experience with nano coating a product, and you can't really make a folding product water resistant yet. And so, because you need the hinges, you need all this technology. And Motorola's been nano coating phones since the Atrix.
Forever. I know, right?
Since the Atrix, since 2014, I think. 2013.
The Atrix is before that. Isn't it? It's before, because that's my time at Engadget. Is 11 or 12, my friend? I would say 11.
Yeah, somewhere around there. It's ever since they started experimenting with Kevlar and stuff like that. And so it's one of those things where I feel that Samsung really needs to up the ante if they want to own that foldable market, because brand recognition right now, Moto has proven that regardless of how much they've screwed up over the past couple of years, all they needed was a killer product and people would go mad for it.
All they needed was a Razr.
like all the videos of that launch, the most horrible lighting in history were trending. They were trending. Like, these guys can't even believe how successful this has been, and they haven't even launched the damn thing. So those are the rumors of the Fold 2. I hope that I do hope that they go all out in specs and camera, because that's literally what the Razr gets wrong. But I have a feeling that Moto's error in the case of the processor is a good move, because in the end, you want that thing to be a communicator. This is literally the new BlackBerry.
But they should have done 730. The 730 is a more efficient chip, and it's almost pin compatible. I don't understand why.
You have to remember how old this project is.
It's 2 years old.
2.5 years. And so that's literally what it took to build the first iPhone. And so if you remember, by the time the first iPhone was ready, 3G was out, but the iPhone was already 2 years in the process already.
That camera, oh my God, that 2 megapixel.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You would say it's shitty. What kind of cameras did we have on HTC phones back then? They were trash.
I don't care about that, because I was using a 5 megapixel autofocus Nokia camera, and it was a killer.
Which is those were the times of Nokia. But the thing about it is, I think that Moto is playing a good game right now.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I want their Gen 1 to be successful, because their Gen 2 is going to be better. And
if their Gen 2 can have a Snapdragon 765G in it with 5G. Like, it doesn't have to have millimeter. It can just have low band and mid band.
Low band.
Woohoo! It's going to be great.
Here's the thing, though. Probably one of the most interesting rumors is that W series from Samsung has never been inexpensive. And the rumors are that whatever Fold 2 we're getting is going to cost $900, which I don't believe. That came from the other sources. I don't believe that thing's going to be $900. If they launch that thing for $900 and they underspec it just to keep the price down, in the end, to a certain degree, Miriam, the only way you can... It's the reason why the 765 series is so important. The high end of the market is never the one that drives adoption. What drives the market is the mid to high market, the premium mid-range, should you call it, which is where that 7 series falls and the new MediaTek chip falls. And so, in the end, if they want crazy adoption, they're going to need to play in that price range. If they do, that's going to be the boldest move I've ever seen from Samsung, but I doubt it.
But I think there's another trend we should talk about. I'm seeing a trend here, and I don't know if you agree or not. I'm seeing the trend, if you look at Chinese phones, as I defined them earlier in the show with quotes, right? Chinese phones, the unattainable unicorns we can't get that are so cheap and so awesome, but don't have Google stuff. Those phones a lot of them are packing 730G right now.
Yeah, Oppo
which
is the king of that.
You do not see that on any Western phone. Very few European and US bound phones have the 730. They all have 855, right? I'm calling it that next year, the 765 and 765G are going to be freaking everywhere.
Yeah, no.
The 865 is going to be the holy grail. It's going to be I got a real flagship. It's got the 865 in it. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be like that next year. It's not going to be what you expect.
It's interesting, but Oppo started something really interesting. And I think Oppo was the first company to create a premium mid-ranger with their R series back in 2015.
Yeah.
Was it 15?
Yeah, that sounds about right, because the R17 was 2019, so that's 18. So the 17 was 18, the 15 would have been 16. Yeah.
But back then they were still playing with jumps in 2 digits for their name. So that phone was the R3. It was the thinnest phone. It was the first phone to not bring a headphone jack back in the day.
Yeah, I remember that.
I still have that phone, actually.
Oh my God.
I still have that phone, actually. And that was the first ever premium mid-ranger. And it's hilarious because if you remember, they also launched the N series beside it. That one had the full-blown specs and everything. And yet the most popular phone was their premium mid-ranger because it was affordable enough. And it had, enough pack, and the battery life was insane. The screen was OLED. It was actually a really good phone. Oppo is the first company to disrupt when it comes to premium mid-rangers. And the 7 series, and it was one of the things that I said in our podcast last week, I'm more excited over that 765 because I want 5G to be adopted like hotcakes. And that is the price range that's going to achieve it. Apple has been doing it for years. Come on, they don't use the latest and greatest specs, and yet they're able to disrupt the market because obviously they make the profits. They keep churning in these phones, but they play with their design and they play with their services and so much, and they just play with their brand loyalty. In the end, right now, very few companies are making money. Very few companies in the smartphone space are making money. The only ones that are very successful are the ones that are succeeding in that premium mid-range to mid-range market. And it's Oppo, Huawei, and that's pretty well. It's Samsung as well. Every other company that's experimenting with only flagship products is not doing well. And so look at Moto. Look at Moto finally reach profitability with mid-rangers. That's the secret.
The thing is, I don't think the U.S. is on board, though. I think that because people walk into a carrier store right now and buy their phone subsidized, and that they don't care how much a subsidy is. If it's $5 more a month, it's it's an espresso more a month, right? It's they don't care. So they just want the best of the best. And so I think the U.S. is a bit of a separate market. I think that might change this year, though. And I'm hoping it does.
It has to change because in the United States, there's only the flagship and the low end. There is very little phones that are in the mid-range.
But what is the incentive if I walk into a Verizon store in July 2020 and I have choices of 5G phones and there are a bunch of mid-rangers there, including maybe a couple of OnePluses, and all of a sudden, and I'm the salespeople are pushing me on an iPhone or on a Samsung phone. That are going to be flagships. That are going to be $1,000 phones.
But see, here's the thing.
How do you break that, right? How do you break that?
It's very difficult because of the price model that works in the United States. I think that David Kogan explained it so well. When the iPhone 10 launched and then you had the iPhone 8 and there was a $400 difference, and Kogan's response was, there's only $6 a month difference.
Correct.
$6 a month.
That's why I don't see anybody buying those 765G, 5G mid-range phones in the US at least. But I think the rest of the world, absolutely. It's going to be a revolution. Right. We're going to see Europe is going to go nuts on these, and we're already seeing it. I have an Oppo Reno 2. It's amazing. Honestly, that phone for the money is great. I have a K20 from Redmi, not the Pro, so not the 855. I've got the 730, and it's just great as well. So I have a bunch of these. Let's finish quickly on Samsung's S11 rumors and then jump to Oppo because obviously we clearly want to talk about.
Oh my God! So in the case of the S11, where do you want me to start?
I mean, let's quickly do you want to quickly bullet
rumors.
Points what the rumors are, because I don't really want to get into that too much because we're going to be talking about that very soon at MWC anyway.
They can't decide over the amount of cameras. There's just so many rumors. The design looks horrible, but I'm like, listen, the iPhone 11 Pro and 11 looked terrible in the leaked,
were good.
The dummies, and then they were actually good. Apparently, one phone was caught in the wild, and it seems that it doesn't look as bad. The camera module looks horrible, but again,
like a big rectangle, right?
Yeah,
basically?
Yeah, but it's kind of early. Here's the thing. There are rumors that this is going to, that the Note 10 Plus was the end of a series. That it's going to be the end of variable aperture, the end of the 12-megapixel camera. Samsung really needs to step up their game. They really innovated with the S6, and then they just played a Google. They've been really stagnant when it comes to camera quality. And in the end, these are the things that actually matter. And so I think it's going to be rather interesting for Samsung to, gain back their limelight with camera innovation, because in the end, what other differences are they bringing to the Galaxy lineup? Like what other changes? I mean, they're always bringing the best OLEDs. But they just need to step it up with their camera, and they need to step it up with their software. I don't know if have you been using the Note?
Yeah,
lately?
I've got a 10 Plus I just put in my pocket because I hadn't been using it much, and I had it for months. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Samsung phones.
Neither.
That's the reality of it.
Neither. And so they really need to step it up. And I guess that's the main reason why they're pushing so much with the whole concept of the fold, and they fumbled. They're going to need to figure it out, because right now in the flat slabs, they're not, the iPhone is really hitting them hard. Huawei was hitting them hard up until a couple of months ago. I don't know if you heard.
I have to say, though, that I do love the industrial design of the Note 10.
Oh my God. And not just that, you just put an S10 Plus in your hand. Do yourself a favor, hold that S10 Plus.
One.
Okay, yeah, hold that S10 Plus and compare it to that OnePlus 7 Pro 5G, whatever that you have.
Oh, yeah.
How light is that phone? That
it's
S10
insane, right?
Plus is it's just a polarizing design, because it doesn't feel or look as heavy.
It doesn't feel substantial, yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons why I prefer it over the Note 10 Plus, but still. I'm not really impressed by the rumors, point being. I mean,
108 megapixel, of course they're going to do that. It's their flagship camera. They developed it with, it with Xiaomi?
They have to do it, but apparently it's not just going to be the whole concept of what they can do for pixel binning. There are rumors that they're going to add additional elements to that camera that Xiaomi did not bring. Now, what are the elements? We don't know, because they were talking about depth and certain things, and I'm like,
focus pixels, maybe.
I don't know, because there are other rumors that say they're going to use focus pixels in addition to laser autofocus and make it play with both.
Weird.
The
problem with laser autofocus is this: is if you shoot video with a phone, instantly, if you're shooting anything reflective, you've got a red dot in your video.
Yeah.
And that sucks, because, it's reflecting the laser, right?
Yeah.
Because the lasers are infrared and the sensors are sensitive to infrared. And so we don't see it at the naked eye, but the sensors catches it. So anyway, look, I don't care so much about the S11 rumors. Obviously there are rumors. It's that time of year. I mean, MWC is a month and a half away at this point. Maybe a little more than that. 2 months away. But it's soon, and usually that's when Samsung launches the S series. So we're going to be seeing something, and it better be good, and it better be good in terms of imaging, because Apple certainly just bullied everybody around this year, didn't they?
Oh yeah, I think that Apple deserves their success this year. They just
they listen to their customers.
Oh,
even with the 16, the MacBook Pro 16, whoa.
That's been the theme where it's wait a second, is it true that Apple is actually listening to their consumers now?
Look what happens, Google, when you listen to your customers. Hey.
Oh my God.
Oh, I'm so mad right now. I'm so mad that I can't use it. I mean, look, no. I'm mad about the decisions they made for the Pixel 4. I've gone over this many times on the show now, but it's mostly the fact that here I am now 2 months after having this phone in my pocket, and I still can't use any of my banking apps. And that's why I'm switching to the OnePlus. I cannot continue using this phone. It is not a practical phone for me. I measured it. I used my fingerprint reader on my old Pixel 3 XL, which is still my daily, 126 times that week.
Wow.
for various apps.
Wow.
And so you're going to say, well, I could put my banking apps in OnePass or whatever, some password manager. And I don't want to do that because they're my banking apps.
Yeah,
that's
but
how I roll.
It's that lack of convenience where
it's a lack of convenience.
You feel like if you're in the dark ages, and it's
not just the banking. Like if I want to change the settings on my Tesla app, I need the fingerprint, right?
And have you noticed that if you travel, then a lot of those features get switched off?
Exactly. That's the other thing. I mean, look, I love the camera. I love what they've done. It's a good camera, but it's missing that ultra wide. And I actually am pretty impressed with the zoom on that. I don't.
Miriam, did you try you did in front of me. You noticed. I
was right next to you.
Yeah, you noticed the differences in the zooming technology.
But that was good light. Okay, like the stage had good lighting.
It's not great. It's no.
Ultimately, it's a miss. The Pixel 4 is just the fact that I'm switching away from it for the first time after using Nexus and Pixels for a decade tells you something, right? Yeah. And so anyway, all right, let's talk about the Pixel really quickly. There is a quick news update about the Pixel that apparently is now going to receive updates of features, like a bunch of features lumped together quarterly as a drop, what they call it.
Yeah, but they didn't specify like what.
They didn't specify what it means.
Like,
right?
Okay, you're getting drops of what? Like apparently we're going to be getting
droppings is what they're getting. Jaime.
Yeah, apparently we're getting like new major feature packages that are going to arrive, like Windows XP Service Pack 2 or Service Pack 3. I guess is the best way to put it. If you remember that, you do, but the rest of the listeners, thing about it is, they don't specify like what features exactly. Is there anything to look forward to? I like it. I like for example, these. I think that these are things that should have always happened. Like for example, right now that Qualcomm's going to be able to send like graphics GPU drivers over the Google Play Store. That's like major. That's awesome. And so it's great for Google to actually use their whole software prowess to be able to bring major updates. I want to know, what can they fix? Well, they can't add the hardware that's missing, and that's what's pissing me off. It's like you have no ultra wide. I'm still butthurt about that. Solely radar is useless. The fact that you have a different API for your face identification versus a fingerprint, like Apple showed you how to do it. Couldn't you do it right, Google? Like, how the hell do you mess that up? They made a seamless transition from fingerprint to Face ID. No apps didn't work. And it's not because Apple developers had a head start. It was a completely backwards compatible API, you boneheaded fools. I asked myself a question. Like, when companies make mistakes like these, I'm like, did you guys test your phone?
Well,
like, do you?
They don't, because everybody at Google has an iPhone.
Yeah.
I hate to tell you, but if you go to Google Campus, it's MacBook Pro and iPhone Central.
Yeah, you don't see people with Chromebooks.
And, they've tried, because the Pixel Book and the original non-Go and even the Go, I would argue, is a very nice laptop. And of course, the original Pixel Chromebooks were great. But very few people actually use them there. And it's just like they just don't seem to dog food their own stuff.
I think that Google doesn't.
I don't think Google employees use Android at all. I think they hate it.
You know what Google needs to do? Google needs to spin off the Pixel. They need to make They may need to make a separate company from it, and therefore they would take, like, if this would have its own separate bottom line and they actually had to be a successful company, I think that that's the only way they take it seriously, because they just don't.
I don't think Google takes a lot of what they do seriously. Like they have a core business, which is ad revenue, okay? And that's it. Like the rest is just accessory to them, and they don't commit to anything. Remember how they killed the newsfeed reader? They killed, they just kill stuff randomly. It's like people get mad about that and they don't even care. It's like, sometimes you got to remember, Google, that you're affecting people in a major, major way. And now the Pixel is not a big deal because very few people in the great scheme of things are using the Pixel.
Yeah.
But like, what did it cost you to not do this phone right? Like, you have so many examples around you, OnePlus, others, and you can't do a phone right. Anyway, forget it. This drop thing is interesting insofar that if you have like a Google Pixel 3a, for example, you might get some of the Pixel 4 features all bundled together. soon, which is great. I mean, the recorder app is finally available for Pixel 3, 3 XL, and 3A, 3A XL.
Oh, really?
And actually, yes, and I've downloaded it and it works like charm. And I would like to say that I'm most excited, let's be positive for a second about Google and the Pixel line. I'm most excited to see what's happening with the 4A next year, if there is a 4A, you know?
We'll see.
At this point, the 3A was great. So, not cheap enough in my opinion.
Not
pretty
cheap
great.
enough in my opinion, but yeah, it was.
I mean,
it was
nothing
a
in
good
the
phone.
US is cheap enough. Like seriously, like when you see that, like phones like the Redmi K30 that they just announced for $280 with 128 refresh screen and a Snapdragon 765G,
like that
$280. Okay, we're gonna talk about that in a second. Let's quickly talk about OnePlus and the 8 Lite rumors because that's kind of interesting to me. Remember the OnePlus X?
Of course I did.
I had one.
Did you get the ceramic version?
I did both. Yeah, I got both. I got the white one and the black ceramic one.
Oh my god, yeah, those were the days, and yet OnePlus said that they were never going to do it again.
It was sexy though, right?
It was sexy, but they were like, yeah, no, that didn't really work well
It
for
totally
us.
flopped. Like, it totally flopped.
And I don't understand why it flopped, is the question.
I think it's because it looked really nice, but I think it was too pricey for the specs. I think it was ahead of its time. Like, the OnePlus audience was really set on specs. They did looks, right? They didn't focus on specs. Like, it didn't have a fingerprint reader, which was crazy because the OnePlus 2 at the time had a fingerprint reader.
Yeah.
So people were losing their minds, you know? They're like, why did you not future-proof this phone? You're OnePlus.
I think that OnePlus just did not have enough brand equity at the time.
Equity. And now they do. I think an 8 Lite would totally work.
I don't know. I'm really happy with the 7T. I'm not really happy with the 7T Pro.
I agree with you. Unless you have the 5G version on T-Mobile for this month only, because next year it'll be better. Something better will come along.
Right. I really love. So I get the perspective. Like they experimented with the 7 Pro. They priced it really high, in my opinion. And so they came up with the 17 and we're like, you know what? Why don't we just kill all this pizzazz and let's go for like the essentials. And so no more curved display. It's actually lighter to hold. It's got a good enough camera, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
just think, honestly, for me, I think the OnePlus 7T is my phone of the year 2019.
It's not for me, sadly.
iPhone for you? iPhone 11?
So, no, for me, it's the iPhone 11 or 11 Pro. But honestly, in the case of the 7T, it's like if you try to take a photo of like at golden hour,
it's terrible.
Yeah.
No, I look, the problem with the 7T, and this is the only big thing that completely effed up, in my opinion, is the lack of OIS on the telephoto. Like, what? Seriously? The telephoto on the 7T Pro is so much better.
Yeah, and they brought that macro mode, which I find to be really cool, but it's just
the macro mode exists on the 7T Pro as well. So
on the 7T Pro, yes. But what I'm saying is there are just so many other elements that are missing. Like, particularly when it comes to photography, they just can't figure it out, and yet they give me a donut the size of my pickup truck. It's one of those things where it's like, you know that companies do this to cut corners when it comes to, the cost of manufacturing. The more you miniaturize the parts, the more expensive it is to manufacture them, the better machinery you need. And therefore you come up with these like huge camera humps. Like you see that in the Honor lineup. Like the Honor 20 Pro has a camera hump that's probably the size of a 737. And so, it's you get to see those design choices, and you're like, can it at least be worth it? And it's not. Yeah. Like I've had photos, right? I take them at golden hour, and if they're like plants moving, oh my god, the phone fumbles so much with dynamic range that whatever plants were moving during the shot will literally cast this like horrible shadow all around.
But it's a software issue because that sensor, IMX586, 48 megapixel sensor with a decent lens and OIS, that sensor should work great in that condition.
Yes, but if you look into the IMX lineup, that's like the mid-tier of the sensors that are available with that amount of megapixels, while we're using the most expensive one on their P series. So it's one of, I get it.
But what I'm saying is the 586 is on everything, and it's like on a Reno phone, it's awesome. So, like, my point is, it can be done right, It
can be done right, but OnePlus, they like, I love Oxygen OS. I love the feel of the phone. If I could just shave off that camera hump, which is horrendously annoying,
It just doesn't bother me, honestly.
Oh, it does. It does for me. That part, and then they just like if you're gonna tell me that your camera's like, listen, because of the price tag, I don't mind. But if you tell me that your camera's amazing, just show me that it is. You know, it's that's the part. And
so if we remove the iPhone from the equation for a second, what is your favorite phone of 2019 then? Android.
Oh my God,
that was a tough one, right?
No, I call it the Note 10 Plus.
Okay, for me it's a toss between that and, believe it or not, the Oppo Reno 2.
Oppo. Like I tried the Oppo Reno, the 10x zoom, and
but the 2 the 2 is different. It's got 4 cameras in the back.
Yeah,
it's got a dedicated macro. I don't know. I was really surprised by that phone. I can't really recommend it because it's like, how can you buy that unless you buy a gray market, etc. Right? I mean, it works on Google, no problem.
It works. It's just Oppo's persistence on Color OS is what's like.
Oh God, Color OS. Oh my God.
It's getting better. It is. It's just.
So do you think we're going to see this OnePlus 8 Lite? Like I think we are, because OnePlus is growing up quickly. And they want to diversify, right?
I don't know if it's a good idea. I would rather them figure out their OnePlus 8 and like make a really killer OnePlus 8, man, and then you give me the mid-ranger.
Right. Well, I think to me the 8 Lite would be more like a $280 phone in China. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're talking a price tier that's competing with the K30 and with like those Oppo Reno phones, right? So yeah. I mean, remember, same company, right? BBK is on top of all of this Oppo, Vivo, OnePlus madness. There's a lot of technology sharing between these companies, right? Oh, yeah. So, and then Xiaomi, of course, is a big driver of price. So yeah, anyway, speaking of, let's not worry about the Xiaomi phones that I've listed in the thing, because they're really basically
announcements.
One takeaway, which is announcements at Snapdragon Summit last week that some Xiaomi phones are going to have those new chips, and that's a no-brainer. But I want to talk about Oppo real quick, because they had a innovation summit in Shenzhen. Some of our friends were invited. I wasn't. But they basically showed, again, an under-display camera, which is selfie camera, which is interesting. But more importantly, they finally launched the Reno 3 line, which I think is also really interesting, other than ColorOS, as you said.
Well, but here's the thing. They launched, quote-unquote, because we didn't really get a launch. We just got a teaser. That was pretty much it. You're right.
But we know more about it now, right?
Not really. Like, other than the teaser, and like, for me, there are two takeaways from this event. The first one is that under display camera, just because of how they figured it out. Like, you switch pixels off and then it takes the photo.
Of course you switch pixels off. I mean, we knew that genius. 6 months ago, that you can't have the pixels on while you take the photo.
I think that's genius. It looks horrible with that like cutout. It looks like Minecraft, but I don't care. I think it's a great idea. But I think that the question is, what phone is going to bring that? And so the other rumors that we got literally like at night after you had sent me this rundown is that Oppo Find X2. And
that's right, the Find X2.
And I think that that's going to be the thing, because it's like a full screen design, better cameras, faster charging, like even faster. Like, I love the Oppo Find line, because even if you have to put up with ColorOS, oh my God, like in 2018, my favorite design, that Oppo Find X was like, my God, just you're so sweet. I'm like,
but this is not going to have that crazy mechanism anymore, because it's going to have the under display camera,
and
right?
I love it for that, because now I'm not going to have to put up with no water resistance. And if you remember, that mechanism is literally what made that phone prone to be able to be bent. Like, I think that was like the Ferrari of designs. And so many designs came after it that literally mimicked it to the dot. The Mate 20 Pro from Huawei was a literal copy. Like 100% of, like, if you held both phones side by side, from the front, they looked freaking identical unless you switched that Mate 20 Pro's display on. Like, the design was inspirational. It was gorgeous. It was simplistic. I loved it. And I cannot wait for that Find X2 or whatever they're going to call that thing. Find 12, whatever.
Find 12, is that what it is?
I don't know. They're saying Find X2. I don't know. It's faster charging. That's going to be crazy. But for me, it's like Oppo's Find line has always been like the OnePlus version, like the no holds bar. Yes, we do premium mid-rangers, and that's where we make money. But this is the Vanguard phone. This is what we can do. And so
for me, what I have to say about Oppo this year is that Oppo has come front and center for me as of, this is not an industry trend I'm talking about. This is my personal awakening on Oppo. I did not have access to a lot of Oppo phones in the past. And this year, it started with Alex sending me an Oppo R17 Pro. Just before MWC. So I used that at MWC and I was pretty happy with it. Then I skipped the Reno 10X. I never got my hands on it. But he sent me the Reno 2 and I'm really happy with that phone. Then I got to play with the Reno Z, which is a MediaTek P90 phone. And I'll be frank with you, it's a very mid-range phone. Nobody cares about this phone. It's obsolete now because it came out with the original Reno line. But here's the thing that blew me away, Jaime. I took it with me to what is it called, MediaTek's thing, and I was amazed with the camera on this. It's got the IMX586, 48 megapixel. It only has 2 cameras in the back. It has that and a depth sensing camera, like for portraits, right? Yeah. It's a basic phone. But the imaging performance that Oppo is bringing to the table right now is really impressing me. They are upping their game in a major way. I feel that after Samsung, Apple, Huawei, Oppo is really the next in line in terms of imaging right now.
I think so too. And
Xiaomi, I don't have enough seat time really to judge. I was very impressed with the K20, Redmi K20. The imaging on that for the price, I mean, there was no OIS on the main lens, but it still did a very, very good job. So I think Xiaomi's also right on their heels. Xiaomi, Oppo are really doing a good job right now.
Well, I think that Xiaomi figured out the camera ever since the Mi Mix 2. Like, that camera was really good. Regardless, at the beginning, I remember the first one that I got was a prototype. It was good most of the time. But then they refined their software, and it was really good. It's interesting, but, right now, it's, very hard. It's one of the main reasons why I want to gag OnePlus sometimes, because I'm like, why can't you figure this part out?
Exactly. You've got access to this technology. Why can't you do it?
Exactly. And I do understand. In the case of Oppo, I've been liking Oppo photography. You're not gonna believe this, since 2015, since the original R lineup.
But see, I didn't have access until last year. I started really getting into Oppo phones, and so this year was a revelation for me. I was like, wow, these phones take good photos.
They did R5 and R5 Plus, and so it's funny because back then I didn't understand anything about ISPs or the fact that the image signal processor was dependent on the processor. And I had these phones were powered by Snapdragon 600 series chips, and yet they performed so well. I have photos that I took with the Oppo R5 Plus from back in the day, and they performed really well.
Yeah.
I
mean, I'm happy. I'm impressed. I mean, it's incredible to me that within a year they went from Reno to Reno 2 to Reno 3, right? They are really every 4 months it's like a new freaking phone.
But I don't get it because they're playing a Sony, and I'm like,
but
Sony.
In China it works probably. They probably sell so many phones. And India, remember, India is so spec driven, right? That's their bread and butter, I think.
Yeah.
So let's switch to Vivo because that's the last thing I want to talk about, and we're running out of time anyway. But Vivo is the third, child of BBK here. So there's rumors of an X30 5G with a periscope camera.
Yeah.
So have you seen that? What do you think?
Oh,
What do you think of Vivo in general?
How many innovations have they come up with? The first pop-up camera was Vivo. The first under-display fingerprint scanner was Vivo. They weren't the first to do these periscopic cameras, but yet, I think it's the natural progression. I'm just going to ask you a little question. What do you really think that there's? Because my problem with the Reno, the original Reno 10X Zoom was that phone was thick, thick.
I never got one, so I don't have a point of reference.
Oh my god, that phone was really thick with 2 Z's.
Okay.
And so
was it thicker than the P30 Pro?
Significantly.
Okay, so they basically did a periscope camera, but it was knackered. It was
because
they didn't know what to do.
Because what they did was they made the camera design flush with the chassis to avoid the hump, which makes a lot of sense because you can throw in an insane battery in there. But then the body of the phone was just so thick, I was like, oh my god. And so I don't know. I don't know if periscopic cameras have a feature right now that we're getting up to 200 megapixel support in the Snapdragon 865. Do they make sense if you can do this digitally is the question.
Well, I don't think we're quite there with the digital stuff yet. I think that the problem is that, yes, you can zoom in more when you have 108 megapixels, but remember the size of those pixels Jaime. And now things like the algorithm, the super zoom algorithm Google's using, where it's using the wiggle of your hand to interpolate subpixels, that works pretty well. But I don't know of anyone actually actively doing that other than Google right now. And as you saw, as you tried to convince me at the Tech Summit at Qualcomm, it doesn't make much of a difference in good light.
No, it doesn't. It's not amazing.
I think optical is still there for a little while, but I think, do we need periscope? I think a 5 times or 3 times optical that's not periscope, stacked lenses might still be fine.
Well, here's the problem with opticals. I mean, how many camera lenses do you have that have persistent aperture when you focus in?
Well, none. I mean, a lot of them, but they're really expensive.
There are,
right?
But they're like really big lenses and they're really expensive. Yeah. And so the biggest challenge when you do, and I think that that's one of the things that Apple gets right. They're like telephoto, ultra wide, or standard. You're gonna get the same color reproduction and dynamic range theoretically.
Yep.
Dynamic range is a little theoretical, but that's the biggest problem. Like to a certain degree, even if you were to use a professional camera, it's very difficult for a telephoto to be always useful unless you use it for specific scenarios. In my case, I love them for street photography. I love telephotos for, like, if I want
portraits too.
Yeah, for portraits, they're perfect. But in the end, it's very difficult for a telephoto to be useful in low light, to be useful in certain tight scenarios. And so I don't think the periscopic cameras are like achieving that, because you've got that extra like space within the body of the phone where that periscopic effect. I mean, single lens reflex cameras have been doing periscopic technology for I don't know how many decades.
Yeah,
decades.
Since the word reflex means that.
But like I don't know. I wasn't really impressed. Like it's nice to have, but I would rather them fix.
I mean, I think that Huawei shows it's viable. I think their implementation where they do the OIS with the prism instead of doing the OIS with the lens is actually one benefit of having the periscopic. You have more room to move the lens around. For correction. I think the big thing you just touched on, which I think is really true, is that we have yet to see a serious phone maker, although it's come close with the Mate 30 Pro now. We've yet to see a phone maker put the same sensor on all 3 lenses. That's what we really need.
And that's what we really need.
We need the optics, but we need OIS and the same sensor on everything.
Right.
And so we're not seeing that. Like, you keep seeing 8 megapixel telephoto lenses. You can't shoot 4K video with 8 megapixels, guys.
No.
Like, how are you going to do telephoto with you're not doing telephoto with the telephoto lens when you're shooting video on that phone. And you're using the main lens, and then it goes all to hell.
If anything, if you give me that periscopic zoom lens and you give me that 48 megapixel camera, then it becomes a beast, because that's like the total stalker phone. That's like binoculars on steroids right now, because the biggest problem is that if you do their basic optics, like in the Reno 10X, it's funny how it's 5x optical, it's 6x hybrid, and yet for some reason the camera defaults to 6x, which is like stupid. I'm like, why? Like, I want optical.
I mean, it's expensive to do that. That's why they're not doing it. They're not putting good sensors behind those secondary lenses, because if you start doing that, you're going really up in price really quickly.
Or is there a way for you to just be able to like swap the camera focals on one sensor, because
moment lenses.
Yeah, but without having to detach something, like a slider,
and also sealed, so you don't have to worry about dust and stuff.
Because that's the other problem. My biggest concern with any foldable, with the Find X at its time, is a basic engineering principle. The more moving parts you have, the more opportunity for failure.
And that's the problem. And that's why I actually like the fact that we don't have a little slider mechanically in the back to switch lenses, because you can imagine how badly that would wear out after some time.
After some time, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, listen, we should wrap it up. Do you want to tell folks where on the internet they can find you?
That's a good question. Business-wise, Pocketnow on everywhere. YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. You'll find me on Jaime Rivera on Instagram mostly, posting photos of my food and my workouts, because that's the only way I hold myself accountable to come back to the gym the next day. But that's me, man.
Nice. Yeah, you should follow Jaime. There's also the Pocketcast Daily, which is a video show that he produces. It's on the Pocketcast YouTube channel. Check it out. And also obviously on the main website, you can get to the daily. But it's a great source for me every day to know what's going on in the industry. And I think you should definitely subscribe to that channel and watch Jaime every day.
Thank you.
Great source of news. You know where to find me, folks, on the internet. I'm at Tankgirl. That's TNKGRL on Instagram and on Twitter. That's like Tankgirl, the comic book character without the vowels. And of course, Twitter is where you should engage with me about this podcast. If you have questions, comments, you should do it on Twitter. If you want to watch pretty pictures of phones and pretty pictures taken with phones, you should check out the Instagram channel. And then there's a YouTube channel that goes with the podcast, youtube.com/Miriam Joire. It's my full name spelled out without a space. You can find my full name on my Twitter account. And there's a bunch of videos there, hands-ons, unboxings, related content to the show. So if you want some visual content to go along with your podcast, maybe you can watch it at the same time as you're listening or something without the audio on. It'll be great. Subscribe to that channel, like the channel, do the notification bell, all that good stuff. Tell your friends, comment in the channel if you want to talk to me. That'd be great. And I want to thank our sponsor, Audible. Audible.com has been with us for a while now, or quite a long time, and they are really the best place to go for audiobooks. If you like audiobooks, if you like listening to books, they're your go-to. So check them out. We have a special deal right now, 30-day free trial, so that you support the podcast while getting some free books. You get to keep them even if you cancel, so check that out. It's going to be in the show notes below in the description, so check it out. The link is audibletrial.com/mobiletech. That's audibletrial.com/mobiletech. Please consider supporting the podcast by getting Audible, and you don't have to keep it if you don't like it. Another thing is the podcast URL is mobiletechpodcast.com. If you stumbled upon this show by accident and you want to know how to subscribe, you can subscribe. There's an RSS feed, but most importantly, we're on all the big platforms: Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Overcast, Spotify, everywhere. If you do subscribe through a channel that allows you to rate us and to review us, please review us being me and my guests. And Jaime, thanks again for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure to be here, Miriam. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. We'll have you on again soon, and we'll have a show next week, folks. So stay tuned for that. Cheers, everybody.
Alexa, shut up.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.